Well, it is a blessing to be able to come and share what the Lord did in the few weeks that we had over in America. And as I said this morning, one of the greatest things that we saw was the Lord working before we even left to the States. And we just want to share with you what the Lord did, how we saw his protection, how we saw his provision, and just the kindness that we received from those who love the Lord, people we'd never met before, just so generous, and just to see the love of God in action in so many lives is such a blessing. So we just wanted to share with you exactly what we went through over the past few weeks. So I'm going to ask Sarah, Jamie and Joe to come up at this time, because the first couple of hours of our trip were very interesting. So we left at 3:30, and this is important, the fact that we left at 3:30 on Saturday morning. I need you to understand, not because we were looking for sympathy as to, oh, love them, they got up early. It was early, mind, wasn't it? Some people look really rough in the morning. But anyway, I just need you to bear that time in mind. So we left the church at 3:30. We had a time of prayer before we left the house. We had a time of prayer with Sarah and Jamie at their house. We had a time of prayer with the group that were in the minibus. And we had a time of prayer in Julian's car with the group that he was taking as well. So we got to Bristol Airport.
Yeah, so we got to Bristol Airport and we realised that we turned up 3 hours for an international flight, because of course we were flying internationally, but because we were going to Dublin first, the checkout desk only opened 2 hours before, because that was an internal flight, as they called it. So we had a little bit of a wait, and but everything went fine with the check-in, although they were using a brand new system for the first time. So it was took us a little bit of time to check in. And everybody was just anxiously waiting to weigh their suitcases to make sure they were under the limit, particularly Kate and Alice, I think.
Okay, so first flight, no problem. All nice and smooth.
On his first flight.
Okay, and I need sound for the next slide. How are we looking, Josh? We try that one more time. Okay. So we landed in Dublin okay. And then when we took off from Dublin, this happened. It was caught on camera. Somebody was actually filming at the end of the runway, and somebody has put a video together with the air traffic control tower conversation with the pilot and our actual flight taking off.
Channel 11 Juliet, today land at runway 28. Today land at runway 28, Channel 11 Juliet. Channel 11 Juliet, wind 300 degrees, 15 knots, runway 28, clear for takeoff, bye-bye. 28, clear takeoff, thanks for the help, Channel 11 Juliet. Pan, the Shamrock 11 Juliet, bird strike on the runway. Shamrock 11 Juliet, roger, I observed a flame out here, right engine, and you can continue clear, report your intentions ready. 1 Juliet, stand by. And the 11 Juliet, we're just going to climb sort of head 3,000 feet, take a right turn, then Dublin if we may, the VOR hold, 270 inbound, right hand turns. We'll stick at 3,500. Channel 11 Julia, roger, that's copied, and you can contact 132.580 now. I'll pass it on. Okay. Air France 181, Papa, wind 290 degrees at 16 knots, runway 28, clear to land.
Right, 28, please, the line and false 181, Papa. And Air France 181, Papa, just be advised there was a bird strike at previous departure. Just confirm you are happy to continue? We are. Roger.
Low Tower, Shamrock, 11 Juliet, back with you at 8 miles runway 28.
Shamrock 11 Juliet, good day again, and wind at 290 degrees at 12 knots, runway 28, clear to land.
28, we are clear to land, Shamrock 11 Juliet. Shamrock 11 Juliet, I'd like to vacate at the end.
Shamrock 11 Juliet for that is approved. There are rescue vehicles following you on the runway for inspection of brakes. Once you vacate.
In sight, thank you, 11 Juliet.
Shark 11 Juliet, no observation of any hot brake issues from the fire vehicles.
So, needless to say, we didn't get very far. So a bird strike is when a pigeon, actually it was a pigeon went into the right engine and caused what's known as a flame out, which meant it extinguished the engine completely. So we took off and landed with one engine. The reason the rescue vehicle's there because obviously he's only got one engine to use any thrust reverse, and if the brakes overheat, then they will catch fire. So it was interesting because Holly was flying for the first time. When we flew from Bristol to Dublin, she was like, ooh, clouds. When we took off, I think she turned, I can't remember who sat next to her, she turned around and said, is there meant to be fire coming out of the back of the engine? Needless to say, Dad says it's oftentimes, we talk about travelling mercies, and I think we kind of say that flippantly when we say, oh, we're praying for travelling mercies, but we really did recognise that God's hand of protection was upon us. That was where the fun started, because Aer Lingus then told us that we were to go to a hotel and they would give us a phone number to ring and that they would put us on the next flight, which they would provide the next day. So this is Saturday at 2:00 in the afternoon. So we are then promised that we will be flying out at Sunday at 2:00.
So we thought we'd get an early. We thought we'd get an early start. So Joe and I went straight to the checkout desk to try and see if they would give us special treatment because we were such a big group with teenagers that we were traveling with, and we didn't get very far with that. So we immediately dialed the number when Josh and Darren and Jamie were with all the teens getting the suitcases. We thought we'd get an early start and we rang the phone number. I was on hold for nearly an hour and somebody picked up the phone and immediately hung it up. So at that point we thought, well, we better get two phone numbers waiting on hold. So Darren got on one phone, I got on my phone again, and after an hour and a quarter I got through to somebody, and we were already at the hotel by this stage. And I explained that we were a group, that we were taking a bunch of teenagers from our church over to America, and I was met with the response, that's going to be really difficult. And she kept on saying, oh no, this is awful. There was suggestions that she wasn't going to be able to get us out of Dublin for a week at that stage. And And we were clearly far too difficult of a case for her because she then hung up on me as well. So at one stage we were on 5 different telephones. Joe's, Darren's, mine, Jamie's, and Jamie had dialed on the hotel room phone as well. So we had 5 phones on the go. And Josh had taken everybody down to go and get some food because by this time it was dinner time and everyone was getting hungry. So, and we were just in a bit of a hopeless situation. I can't describe to you the roller coaster of emotions that we were going through. It was one of the most stressful experiences because nobody was helping us. Everybody was just not at all comprehending what it was that we were trying to reorganize and achieve here. And so my phone records, just for my phone, never mind the other 4 phones, say that we were on call time of 6 hours and 23 minutes altogether, 23 phone calls to 19 separate numbers, and that was just my phone, never mind the other 4 that we were calling from. And in the end, in an act of desperation, we were getting nowhere. We didn't have euros, so we managed to find somewhere, Jamie managed to find somewhere we could draw euros out, and it cost us 100 euros to get back to the airport to try and get somebody at the airport to eyeball us and realise we needed some help here. And that's what we got to at 8 o'clock that night, is when we took the decision to do that.
I know that scripture says that, or we say that the scripture says God won't give us any more than we can handle. And at one point, Joe said, I think we're coming to the end of our handle. And we honestly thought that we weren't getting anywhere. Obviously, things are booked up in Philadelphia. There are people waiting for us. But the amazing thing is that prior to this, on the Tuesday, we lost our minibuses that we were meant to have in Philadelphia. So we had to end up hiring 3 separate cars. And as a result of that, it meant that Hannah and Daniel and Chloe weren't stuck at the airport because they then had a car that they could get. But then the cars that we had hired that were waiting for us at Philadelphia airport, we lost because we were late. So everything seemed to be falling apart. But it's amazing how the Lord put different people in our paths. The girls we spoke to in the airport, the taxi driver that ended up picking us up and taking us back to the hotel. It was all over the Irish news what had happened. Jamie was witnessing to the taxi driver. People in the hotel who were frantic and shouting and bawling, couldn't understand how we were so calm. I suppose we were like ducks. We looked quite calm on the surface, and underneath all of this was going on because it didn't feel calm. It felt quite oppressive. And we knew, first of all, that God was going to do something quite remarkable on this trip, because either the devil really didn't want us going there, or the Lord was really testing us as a group. And I will be honest with you, this group of youngsters behind me were absolutely incredible. They didn't complain, they didn't moan, they didn't get out of shape. They were fantastic. Just to walk past people, because we're all over the place in this hotel. We're in corridors, we're in different rooms, and to see people, youngsters with their Bibles open and just doing devotions, to see 2 of them in a corner somewhere praying together, and it was just absolutely incredible. And it was just amazing to see how the Lord worked all of this out. So we did finally get a flight booked for the Monday. We ended up having to fly from Dublin to London. So after 46 hours of traveling, we were actually 2 hours further away from our destination after 46 hours of traveling. But we did manage to get flights. We did finally get hold of somebody who was helpful. And it was the next day that the Lord really showed how his hand was upon what went on, because obviously on the Sunday we were meant to be in Philadelphia. We were meant to be in church in Philadelphia. So we had our own church service. And I'm sure some of you with smartphones have the same thing, you know, a verse comes through on your phone every day. And because my watch is linked to my phone, I had a verse come through onto my watch. And we were so fretful, I suppose the word is, on the Saturday. And the verse that I had on my watch that came through Saturday morning was 2 Timothy 1:7. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. So I text Sarah and Jamie and said, look at the verse I've had. And then they text back and said, this is the verse that we had.
Yeah, we had two. We had one on the Saturday and one on the Sunday. And these were the verses, Joshua 10:25. And Joshua said unto them, fear not, nor be dismayed. Be strong and of good courage, for thus shall the Lord do to all your enemies against whom you fight. And then John 16:33 says, these things have I spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer, I have overcome the world.
And Sean had exactly the same verse as well, talking about fear not. So on the Sunday, we managed to have a little church service, and they gave us a room that we could meet together. And this was our devotion on the Sunday after we'd gone through all of that on the Saturday. This was our devotion on the Sunday. Judges 6:39, let me prove, I pray thee, but this once with the fleece. And this was a devotion from Streams in the Desert. There are degrees to faith. At one stage of Christian experience, we cannot believe unless we have some sign of some great manifestation of feeling. We feel our fleece like Gideon, and if it is wet, we are willing to trust God. This may be true faith, but it is imperfect. It always looks for feeling or some token besides the word of God. It marks quite an advance in faith when we trust God without feelings. It is blessed to believe without having any emotion. There is a third stage of faith which even transcends that of Gideon and his fleece. The first phase of faith believes when there are favorable emotions. The second believes when there is an absence of feeling. But this third form of faith believes God and his word when circumstances, emotions, appearances, people, and human reason all urge to the contrary. Paul exercised this faith in Acts 27:20. And when neither sun nor stars in many days appeared and no small tempest lay on us, all save was then taken.
Oh, how the Lord just kept speaking to us all through it, through each other, and how the kids were such a blessing and a testimony, and it was absolutely tremendous. And we prayed for unity as a group every week. You prayed for us, we prayed for unity as a group, and who would know that Joe was so swanky with our little juices, and we were so cool indeed. And the Lord had taken us past the fear then. He'd shown us through that devotion on Sunday that he wanted to use that to strengthen our faith, and it did. And when we were reading our devotion in the lounge then together, in the business class lounge, it talked about Joseph, and it was saying about Joseph being imprisoned and the fear that he must have felt. And it ended with this: imagine the fear Joseph must have felt, but he remained faithful and kept his integrity. God was with Joseph in his difficult journey, and he had a master plan for him. He has a master plan for you and your difficult journey too. Take heart and walk in faith. Trust today that God sees and he knows. And it's just amazing how the Lord just uses his word to speak to us, isn't it? Exactly. Why on this big planet, suspended in this huge universe, with all these billions of people, does God care so much for us to speak words of comfort like that to our heart? And then at the end of that, the verse was reinforced from the next day. It's a totally different verse from a totally different source. It says, wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer. And the Lord was just amazing through it all.
So thankfully, the next two flights were uneventful. So we managed to get from Dublin to London. To Philadelphia. And then when we got to Philadelphia, we met Hannah and Daniel and Chloe. I'd love to say that from this point on, everything was smooth sailing. But Jamie and I went to get the cars because we'd lost our hire cars, and we're trying to rearrange all of this. We finally find the same two cars in a different rental company and for a slightly cheaper price. So we booked these cars. we had to speak nicely to our credit card company so they'd allow us to put extra on, and so we managed to get these cars booked. We get to the car hire place and they're like, they're not available. Well, we've got 13 people and 13 pieces of luggage that we have to fit in these 2 vehicles, and we knew that these cars that we'd booked, they're big, huge Chevrolet Suburban, so we know that all of the luggage will fit, so there's nothing available. So we literally do not know how we're going to get all of these people and all this luggage from Philadelphia to Washington to Georgia back up. But again, the Lord's hand, we did manage then to get another 2 vehicles that we managed to get all the luggage in, and finally we could start our trip and get from the airport to New London Baptist Church.
So when we eventually got to Philadelphia, we met up with families from the church who were going to be hosting us for a couple of nights. So me and Soph, who's currently in Romania, were staying with the Marshalls, and it was nerve-wracking. Like, you're meeting these people for the first time and you've got to go and live with them. And so, we were nervous and it was different, but their kindness and generosity was just so, lovely to see. Like, they were so welcoming, they were so talkative and wanted to know about us and how our journey had been, and it was so lovely. And on the first night we didn't do much with them because we crashed and went to bed, but it was lovely to see how really welcoming into their family life, that they were, and how they wanted us to feel as much as at home as they were, and that was really lovely.
Me and Shauna had stayed with Bill and Ruth Henry, and like Lucy said, it was really, really nerve-wracking going into someone's home, because for me it was my first time going quite a far distance to America as well, and it was my first time on a plane, so it was really nerve-wracking then going to someone's house. But they were really, really really, really kind and generous, and they just treated us as if we were part of the family, and they looked after us really well. And it was amazing to see how kind they were to us when they didn't even know us. And they were really interested in Welsh culture, and they loved it when we were speaking Welsh to them as well.
Me and Holly went to the same family, to Bill and Ruth, and they were so lovely to stay with. And when we got there, we went home and we chatted with them for quite a while. We were just stood around in their kitchen for about an hour, just speaking to them and just getting to know them better. And it was just really nice to see how ready they were just to accept us into their home. And it was just, I'm sure that the other guys have had the same treatment in their homes, and it was so lovely how ready they were for us and stuff.
So me and Lou, we stay at a gentleman's house, a nice brother called Tony. I can't believe how gracious he was. He invited us into his house. He was absolutely shattered after all what these guys have been talking about just now. And literally would do absolutely everything for us. Everything be ready, wake-up calls, whatever we needed was there, sorted, done before we could even think about it. This is the person I spoke to quite a lot over the couple of days we were there. Tony done so much in the church, to cooking for homeless ministries, to singing in their choirs, everything possible you could think of, he does in the church.
After staying with Tony for one night, me and Josh figured out that a number of tragic events has happened in his life, and one of them happened not that long ago. His middle-aged son died, and he was living alone. But you could still see how God had worked wonders in him, as he was always happy and kind to us, as Josh said. And he even let me and Josh play pool with his son's pool table.
Yeah, I had quite a different experience to everyone else because I was staying with good friends, R and Julia Potion, who are really good friends of Mum and Dad, and their son Adam, who I hadn't seen for 4 years. So it was really nice. I was really excited to get there, and it was more of being reunited. And I'm always thankful for how welcoming they are coming into their home, and it was just a really great opportunity just to spend time with them. So yeah. Okay, and then the next day, Tuesday, we went to Sight and Sound Theatres to see a show. It's a Christian theatre, and they do like a different show every couple of years. And this year the show is Jesus, and you can't even explain it. It was amazing, like so touching. I think everyone's allergies played up that day because, yeah, there were tears in nearly everyone's eyes, I think. And yeah, it was really cool to see. They had live animals coming down the aisles and on the stage, apart from the lambs, obviously, because it's not lamb season. That was quite funny because their heads were just jerking every so often because they were animatronic lambs, but that was quite funny. But on a more serious note, like the atmosphere in there was incredible. And I just want to quote one of the songs because it was just so touching. It said, "The leper, the blind man, the deaf and the lame, the wounded and broken, he knows their name. He pulled me from the ground. I was lost, now I'm found. He saved me. He came to the one, this one. He crossed the sea and climbed the mountain to save this one." And it was just a song saying how everyone, the woman at the well, it was just saying the small man in the tree, it said, but how he knew everyone's name. And it was like, I can't explain it. It was just so touching to think that even if there was just the one of us on this earth that still would have come to save us. And it was just so amazing to see. And the one other thing I wanted to mention, which I'd never noticed before, you always see at Easter time the cross with like a cloth hanging over it. And I'd never understood that before. But as you were just watching it, they lifted the cloth over Jesus to lower his body. And it was just a symbol of how the cross was empty. And I think that's, you'd say like, we use the image of the cross all the time, but it wasn't the cross, it was the resurrection. But that's not just symbolizing the cross, it's symbolizing how it was empty. He was lifted down and he rose again. And it's just so amazing to see, so grateful.
So after Sight and Sound that day, that made the West End look like amateur dramatics, we went back to the church in Philadelphia, and we did the youth service there. So they had their youth there that we'd started to get to know. Their youth had come to Sight and Sound with us, and so we did the youth service that night. So Sophie got up and gave her testimony. Lucy got up and gave her testimony, and I give my testimony during that service as well. And then all the teens did the lesson about the mobile phone as they did in the family service as a practice a couple of weeks before. And what a difference. So it wasn't as scripted. They'd found their confidence from being with these people and being in a group together over those few days, and all that they'd gone through together. You could see the growth in their confidence, and it was no longer scripted. Lots of them were ad-libbing when they were there, and it was just amazing to see the growth in them in just a short space of time. And the next day, we went to the lake, which Jamie will talk about now. But one of the youth leaders had come up to us to say that she was going to be speaking in a holiday Bible club sort of thing to youth in the next couple of days, and how she was really, really nervous about it. And how seeing Sophie and Lucy standing up there so confidently, and all of our teens stood up there so confidently and speaking, was a real encouragement to her that if God can help teenagers like that to get and speak so confidently, then of course he was going to help her to do the same. And it was amazing to see how our guys were being an encouragement already to these people that were doing so much for us. So yeah, it was amazing.
So on the Wednesday morning, Ara and Julie, our friends from New London, opened up their lake house for us, and you can see the view off their porch there. And it was actually Sarah's birthday as well that day. We were supposed to be doing ministry, but she kicked off about it, so we had to take her to the lake instead. But no, again, they showed immense generosity. I was probably the most excited one to see the lake and all the toys they had there for us, the jet skis, water skiing, inflatables. It was an incredible day. We took both youth groups, our youth group and the youth group from New London. And it was really timely after the start to the trip we'd had, the tiredness, being split families. It was great to have that morning to just be in the sun, take a breather, and enjoy ourselves together. Really good time of fellowship.
So on the Wednesday evening at the New London Baptist Church, they do a family and fun night. So this week they was asked to bring all of their favourite American foods for us to try. So we were all happy because there's food in there. And I know Holly really enjoyed it with 4 plates, was there? So along with that, we had a singing group sat outside. Then we were singing outside as well. We sang Carol Lamb for them. And we also had Pastor coming up and done a bit of a devotion for everybody.
Then on the Thursday we travelled to Washington, and that was a really exciting experience. We got to see the White House. We had tip-tops outside the White House. We saw the Washington Memorial, the World War II Memorial, also Abraham Lincoln. And then we also had another pigeon incident because they were following us from Dublin with Sean Ed. But so it was a really great experience.
So we just had a travel day then. I don't know if I should mention the Red Roof Inn we stayed at on the Thursday night, but as advertised in Criminal Minds. But anyway, on the Friday then we drove from, on the Thursday we drove from Washington down to Roanoke, Virginia. And then from Roanoke, Virginia, we drove down to Georgia where we'd stay in the Springfield Suites for a couple of days. And it was amazing again to see the generosity of people, and the church helped us find this place. But even that was not without incident, because they hadn't booked enough rooms, they hadn't booked enough nights, and it just seemed to be that everywhere we went, trouble seemed to follow. But it was just amazing again to see God's purpose in it. And even in the hotel, we were able to be a witness on the Saturday when we prepared for ministry.
So we all wore our Blast t-shirts that day. As you can see in the pictures, we're all in matching grey at breakfast. And because we were all dressed exactly the same, we started to spark up some attention from people that were staying in the hotel. Lots of people started asking who we were, why we were there. And one lady came up to me and a couple of us that were having breakfast all together. And she was so touched that a gang of us had travelled over to America to go and work with the churches there, that she was really tearful at breakfast and thanking the teenagers for all they had done to fundraise to come over there. So it was really encouraging way to start the day that we were about to have. And I really liked being matching. I think we should get a uniform in church.
So then during the morning on Saturday, we were tracting. And tracting over there is a little bit different because you can't just put a tract in somebody's letterbox like you would over here. And there's a lot less of what you would post through doors here because the houses are so big and far apart. So it meant that we went around a few different houses in the neighbourhood and had to knock on the doors and invite people to church. And for a lot of us, this was really nerve-wracking because we were just randomly knocking on doors. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know who was going to come to the door or what their reaction would be. And we went to a particularly poor area. There was lots of people with illnesses and older people who were living there. And some people were really welcoming. I was working with Joe, and we met a lovely woman whose husband was working in a church. And other people were dismissive and just didn't want to hear about it. And I think this was really eye-opening for us because we had to sort of become a bit more independent and we had to speak to people, and it was just really encouraging to be able to invite people to church. And it kind of, you could see people's confidence was building constantly as you went throughout the morning. And it was really lovely that we were all able to come together and know that we delivered all those tracts to people and we'd sowed the seeds which needed to be sowed.
Like Lucy said, the majority of people went off to do the tracting and stuff, but there were 4 of us that stayed behind, and we prepped like the food and stuff. So we put together the shelters when we got to Food City, and we got all the hot dogs out, we got the crisps out and the cookies and stuff. So we were there and we were giving out all this free food to people. And you could see a lot of people were kind of nervous to come up to us. It was kind of like they expected us to start like shouting Bible verses and stuff at them and just like force them to come to church and stuff. But some people, it was just really nice to have a chat with them and just speak to them about the Lord and stuff. And yeah, it was really good. Yeah.
Also on Saturday, in the food city, while some of them were at the store, a few of us were given tracts to hand out, and so we went around giving to people tracts, inviting them to have some food or drinks, and if they had any questions, as a lot of people would ask us about where we came from because of our accent and what it's like in Wales. So on that day, it was such a blessing to see because we were able to witness to so many people.
We then had a really unique opportunity to be singing in the car park in outside Food City. And when we'd gone out tracting, there was a man cutting the grass and we thought, oh, he can't come to see us sing because obviously he's working. But we still handed him a tract anyway. And then when we were in the car park, we sang 4 songs and we sang Cal on Lan as well. And we found out that because he was working, he'd phoned his, I think it was his wife, and then she'd brought her friend as well because they were really excited to hear people singing in Welsh because obviously it's quite an unusual language to speak. So it was really nice to see that. And yeah, when we were singing our songs, it was we just had sort of a montage of the last week that we'd with Dublin in the back of our mind, then actually arriving in Philadelphia. It was just, I don't know, we would just reflect on everything like God had done for us and just showing us that how safe we were and how he looked after us and just brought us here safely. Yeah, it was really nice.
So we'd had a very busy day Saturday. We'd gone completely out of our comfort zone to give out tracts and to be there handing food out and then walking around the car park of a grocery store inviting people. So just imagine you doing that is nerve-wracking to us as adults, and the children doing that. It was just amazing to see them and to see what the Lord was doing. And then after that, we had food left over because we'd had hot dogs and things like that to give out. And we had food left over. So we took the food to, was it a shelter? Soup kitchen, they called it, yeah. So we go downtown and there's a whole area where homeless people live. And it was just quite bizarre. You seem to be stereotypical in your mind of when you think of homeless people, but they were people of all ages, people with children. It was all very different. And as we pulled up in the vans and opened the boots, they started to form a line for their food, and it was a really humbling experience to see people with that need. And we gave out all the hot dogs. The children gave out all the hot dogs that we had spare, the crisps and everything, as you see there. And then there were more people than we had food. But the day before, when we'd left Philadelphia, they'd packed us up all goodies for the car. So we were able to get those out to the car and give them out. And we just had enough to hand to the last person in the line. So we just saw God's provision and God's hand in everything. It was really absolutely amazing.
So yeah, busy day of ministry on Saturday. Saturday was Josh's birthday. So thankfully we were treated in the night then by Parkway Baptist Church, who they took us all out to the baseball, to a Chattanooga Lookouts game. So if you noticed a few of us knocking around with Lookouts t-shirts in the next few weeks, that's what it's all about. It's our new favorite baseball team. I didn't think I'd enjoy a baseball match, but it was a really good experience. I think Sarah said it was the most American thing that she'd ever done. We were all sat there munching hot dogs, watching the baseball, and there's a real family feel to the night out. It was like a family-orientated night out. There's plenty of other entertainment going on. Mascots would come into the crowd, and I think one of them came in and attacked Hannah at one point. So there's probably some video footage of that. And like the balls would be hit into the crowd as well, and one landed about 2 feet away from us. Slot, and you could spot the Brits because we all like adopted the brace position as the ball was coming in. But no, and another opportunity to meet people, like they've said, with their accents. People hear them, and Americans being American, they're not afraid to talk to you. So you hear your accents, and another opportunity to tell them why we were there, bringing a church group over. And me and Sarah met a guy queuing for drinks and got chatting to him, telling him why we were there, and he ended up buying us a couple of drinks when we left. So after that, then I started speaking out a bit louder everywhere I went.
On Sunday, we went to Parkway Baptist and for the Sunday school, and we were all split up into age groups, so that was quite scary. And so a few of us were in a group with 4 other children our age, and the man that taught us had a book about life and read the contents out loud, then focused on a few of them, which were death, dating, what else was there? Divorce. Yeah, so then after that, he asked us a few questions, and then we all met up back downstairs.
So after we finished Sunday school, we had the morning service, and it was just interesting to be in a different church. Like, we were thousands of miles away from here, and yet we were in a church surrounded by other Christians. And the churches over there and the church we were in was like massive compared to this church. There was about 1,000 people there, and it was really big. And it was quite interesting to see like the difference in size and the differences just in the church. Like, they have comfier pews than us. And it's just so big, so much bigger. Like, they have just a room just for their choir to rehearse, and they have loads of different classrooms, and it was just so much bigger, and that was quite interesting to see. And also they had such a big choir that would just sing just on a Sunday morning. There were a couple of congregational hymns, but it was mainly focused on the choir, which was a lot different. And the service was really good. It was quite similar to ours, but you could see the differences that they had there. And it was just a really welcoming atmosphere. We really felt like people wanted us to be there. They were so happy to see us. And afterwards, they invited us. They had a Christmas in July dinner. So basically, they put on a whole Christmas dinner in the middle of summer. And the idea is to raise funds for their Christmas Christmas production or play that they put on at Christmas time. And at the church, they was really generous because everybody was paying money to have their Christmas dinner, and they gave it to us for free. And even in this, you can see the differences. Like, their Christmas dinner is completely different to ours. It's just different. And it was just another great time for us to bond as a group and grow together whilst spending time with other people in David Sampson's church. And it makes you think of your own church at home and how different and how similar you are at the same time. And I just want to thank everyone for all their generosity. This church was generous, and our church has been really generous in all our fundraising that we've done. And it's just such great to have such a supportive church family, whether they're thousands of miles away or they're here.
We then had another opportunity to sing in the evening service, and yeah, like Lucy was saying, it was such a big church. You kind of thought that most of the people there wouldn't really know each other because it was so big and there were so many people going there. You didn't really think they'd have sort of a closeness like small churches like we do, but still, the amount of like people there who were just so nice, and it was just amazing because after we'd sung our songs, they had us line up at the front, and every single person in our church came to the front and shook our hands. It was just amazing. But yeah, it was just incredible.
After that, Justin, the youth leader, took us out to have food, just the youth. And that was really nice because we went with their youth as well. So that was a blessing. It was really nice to, I think, me, Kate and Holly sat with Justin and two of the boys from the youth. And it was such a laugh. It was a great opportunity. We didn't go to we didn't go to a fancy restaurant or anything. We went to like Cici's Pizza, this greasy little small pizza place, which Joey had recommended. But even though the food wasn't the best, but the company was, and it was just a great opportunity to just get to know their youth, which was such a blessing. And then after that, we went back to the hotel, and our youth leaders were still out with the pastor of the church. And I think it was only like Hannah and Chloe that were with us. So, and Josh. So we went, a few went up on the roof, and as you can see, that's a photo from the roof, that they had a little photo shoot up there. And then after we all went down to the pool because it didn't close till late. And that was just a great opportunity. We had such a laugh just to spend time together. And it was just such a blessing just to be able to just be together as a youth. Like, it's amazing to meet other people, but just together, bonding time together, like Sarah was talking about unity and just us all being as one. That was such a blessing to get the option to do that there.
I know time has kind of caught up with us, so just to summarise, the last couple of days then was just a blessing to be able to spoil the kids. They were such a testimony. They worked so hard. We prayed for unity. You were generosity as a church in helping them literally pay for every single meal that they had. It was just such a blessing. We were so grateful for that. And again, we were able to spoil them a little bit then the last week. We had a lovely cabin to stay in Pigeon Forge. So it was so spacious just to be able to, spend time together there. And again, it's the same theme over and over, see God's provision, God's protection, God's presence, but just the unity within the group was really special. We managed to go to a pirate show in the night, which was a great experience for the kids. We went out for a meal with different churches. We were able to have devotions every day, devotions in the cabin, devotions in the hotel. And it just seemed to be that every time we got together and talked about the Lord, he just really spoke to our hearts. We spent the day in Dollywood, which is almost like a Christian theme park. And just to see the kids having, such a good time was such a blessing. We met up with the Specs and David Sampson again paid for us all to eat. I mean, there's 22 of us going out for a meal, and he just, took care of the bill for us. It was just amazing to see God's, again, his provision. We got to go to Hannah and Daniel's church in Valley View, and I did mention this morning about the quartet. So if you'd like to see myself, Joe, Sarah and Jamie singing, that's what we're going to do now. So we were in the main service. Again, I managed to give an update on the work in Wales, and then the youth were in the back. They had something similar to our point shop, but it was just amazing to see them working, just to see them fitting in. Never met these people before, and yet they just worked tirelessly. It was just such a blessing to see that. We got to go to a water park on the Thursday, and again, everybody said the same thing. As soon as people heard our accents, they were asking, where are you from? Why are you here? And to hear, Sinead saying that she was able to witness to somebody in the water park because they'd heard her accent and asked why we were here. And it was just encouraging to see the testimony of these youngsters and just to see how blessed it was to be with them. On the Friday, we had a 12-hour drive from Pigeon Forge, where we were up to Philadelphia. It should have only taken nine and a half hours. But when you stop to get 13 people toileted, takes a while, and to get 13 people fed. Now, I didn't have my phone didn't work out there. So at one point, Sarah had found us a sneaky little way to avoid Washington and knock about 45 minutes off our journey. So I said to her, I'll follow you. No problem, because she's the one with the live track and we'll miss all the traffic. So we pull up this interstate and we come into a queue of traffic. So my sat-nav is saying, turn right. So I was like, so I go into the lane thinking that, Jamie is just going to turn right eventually. And I pass him. So we had walkie-talkies and I said, Jamie, this lane is empty. And he's like, I know it's empty because you go in the wrong way. So I drove us straight into probably an hour's queue in Baltimore. But they were so gracious and forgiving. And it's only this afternoon they actually brought it up again. So I'm just thankful for their grace and their mercy. And then on Saturday, when we were due to fly home, we're just about to leave our house and pick the kids up, and our car's got a puncture in the tyre. It just seemed to be every step of the way. There was just little things, little problems, but it was amazing that, I've always said if Daniel had not purposed in his heart to not eat the king's meat in chapter 1, would he ever have been able to go into the lions den in chapter 6? And I think what the Lord brought us through in Dublin, I think has prepared us for most of the trials that we might ever face in our lives again, because we know God is able and God is faithful and God brought us through so much. And I'm just so thankful for this precious group of youngsters that were just such an absolute blessing and a testimony, and, a tribute to you as their church, as their parents, as their family. They were incredible. And even though Luke went through how many gumballs? 680 gumballs. It was nice though, because when he was chewing, he wasn't talking. And then we finally left Philadelphia, and thankfully, it was a bumpy flight, but we'd already been through a few rough flights, so it was no problem. So thank you to everybody who prayed for us. The verses that people were sending us when we were away, the prayers that were being offered up for us. Thank you for your support, financially and prayerfully. And we are truly, truly thankful. And every time we sat down for a meal and we prayed, we were mindful of those who would put their hands in their pockets to help us get where we were. And we're just thankful for, again, God's protection, God's provision, and God's presence. And we just, again, just so grateful for this group of youngsters who were such an incredible witness and testimony everywhere they went and every time they spoke. And I don't want to say I'm proud of them, because I understand God hates pride, but I think it's a righteous, can you have a righteous pride with Andrew? Is that? Yeah, okay, awesome. But they were an absolute testimony, and it was just a privilege to be with them for 2 weeks. So, amen. Thank you so much for listening. I'm sorry we've gone on a little bit longer than we should have. We did actually cut that short. We were thinking about doing mission trip to the Revenge next week, but we did run out of time in the end. So thank you for your patience, for your time, for your listening. And again, thank you to this precious group of youngsters. Amen. Good job, guys. Amen. All right, we'll... praise the Lord. All right, we'll stand and sing our last hymn together as we close out. To God be the glory, great things he hath done. Number 60, and we'll stand as we sing. Praise the Lord. Please don't rush it off. We got quite a bit of food downstairs. If you'd like to stay behind and join us for some sandwiches and what have you with your tea and coffee, just stay for a time of fellowship. It'd be lovely to see you downstairs. We close with a word of prayer and just ask the Lord's blessing.